Congratulations, we all now qualify for hazard pay. You know, hazard pay is that money for the essential workers who worked during the pandemic or did anything hazardous during this entire pandemic. Well, last night we did something hazardous, so we all qualify for hazard pay. What was that? Listening to Nancy Pelosi talk to Wolf Blitzer. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is LALATE and continuation of check in this video. Big developments today on your second stimulus check. Great news. And your second stimulus package and more information about hazard pay for frontline workers and the focus to get you that money in the pandemic despite what Congress is doing. So thank you for tuning in. Go to the French channel, subscribe. We're approaching 300,000 subscribers. Let's get it going. 291, baby. So let's keep it going. Also like this video. Thank you for tuning in yesterday, and thank you for joining me on Mornings LALATE at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. 2 shows. It was a blockbuster. Big numbers today. Wow, I was really shocked. So thank you. In this video, I will be going over the renewed focus on that $10,000 hazard pay. Could it still come to you? Second, I will be going over why it's important to understand that there's other types of hazard pay that's available to you, even in the Mnuchin plan. Oh yeah. I'll go over why it's important to understand what is hazard pay, because there's going to be a lot of confusion over it in the next couple days. Third, I'll be going over the protests and why protests may be ultimately the way to get your hazard pay. And finally, fourth, I'll go over what's coming this fall and this winter, and why the inability to deliver hazard pay yet may ultimately implode for everyone. Boy, it's one of those days. All right, let's get to the breaking news. The breaking news is that you were supposed to get $10,000 under the second stimulus package for hazard pay. $13 an hour had you worked during the pandemic, all the way from then up to the present. But the Temple Doom removed it. The Republicans didn't add it. The problem solvers went to meet with the Temple Doom. She didn't answer the door, so no one put hazard pay anywhere. So is there renewed hope still for hazard pay? Yes. Let me explain to you why. Under Steve Mnuchin's bill, there's great items. And one of the great items is a CDC grant for frontline workers. Now, it's not $10,000, but it is a grant. It's not a loan, it's a grant. And it is for people who are frontline. So this is incredible money that will come to you. Details of the grant, how big it is, how you apply, are totally different than hazard pay. Hazard pay had that horrible provision that the employer applies for you. This one you would apply yourself. So this is great news. Money for you is ultimately money for you, and confirmed money, which you actually get it, as opposed to an employer saying, maybe I'll get to it when I finish, doing my toenails. This is, that's just not appealing. Nor is the toenail reference. Now, the other part of the bill that's really great news is EIDL grants. Back, baby. Back. EIDL grants. Anything that's a grant that I can get you money if you worked in some capacity during the pandemic is great. I know a lot of my workers that worked as a frontline worker for hazard pay that sent me messages, sent me DMs, sent me emails, and said, hey, how do I do this? And do I qualify? The vast majority of you were individuals who worked as solo practitioners, independent contractors. And you always wondered, well, how do I get it? Great news is that all the things I just detailed to you under the Mnuchin plan apply to you. So this is really good. Another reason why the Steve Mnuchin plan is so great. When we talk about hazard pay, it's important to go over now why hazard pay gets a strange confusion over its name. Let me go over that right now. Hazard pay, the word hazard pay, appeared in the Democratic plan with those words, and hazard pay fund and hazard things like that. But what's confusing to some of the viewers is that there is a lot of stuff out there that is hazard pay but doesn't have the name hazard pay. Let me explain to you why. It seems so obvious, but I have to explain it. So, it's sort of like, sort of obvious, like a cow should not be getting stimulus before us, but, some things need explaining. Hazard pay is generally not called hazard pay by the employer because it's suggesting that the workplace is hazardous. Do you think someone hiring you wants to say, "Hi, my place is hazardous. Here's some pay for a hazardous work environment"? No, 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 no. They don't use that word. So the Democrats, for some strange reason, chose a name that just presumes that your workplace is hazardous, and no employer wants to say, "I'm a hazardous workplace. Congratulations for working here." Rather, they use different words. And so what's important for you to understand is bonus pay, employee retention pay, pandemic pay, enhanced pay, and similar words like that are hazard pay. They just don't want to use the word. Whether it's Amazon or Walmart or Target or any Home Depot or Lowe's or anyone that's doing programs on a business to employee level, they never call it hazard pay. They call it bonus pay or something like that. Now, under the Mnuchin plan, similarly, if you're looking at the Mnuchin plan, which is incredibly great, this is great news, you don't see the word hazard pay. That's two words. Hello. This Larry Kudlow math. Hazard pay, that word, hazard pay, Larry Kudlow. Yeah, it's just one word. No, it's two words. You don't see hazard pay under Steve Mnuchin's plan. The reason why is because Steve Mnuchin, rightfully so, doesn't call it hazard pay. He calls it something other than that. So you have things in there that gives you money, and that's why his bill's good. Next. There's other types of hazard pay which causes a lot of confusion for some of the viewers of this channel. There's federal hazard pay, which is what we talked about seconds ago in Steve Mnuchin's bill. Then there's state hazard pay. State programs have been initiated to pay you hazard pay under the first stimulus package. $1.5 trillion was dedicated to states for state and local to pay you things, and among the things they're supposed to pay you sometimes is hazard pay. Third, businesses also do employee-to-employee hazard pay, and that's the example of Lowe's that announced just days ago that they're paying everyone who's working in the month of October in any capacity a bonus. Now, what you need to understand with hazard pay when it's a business-to-employee situation is that you should be getting it. You need to have this conversation with your employer. But ultimately, what has been the case during this pandemic is that the businesses that are paying hazard pay are the ones that are making a lot of money. The Walmarts, the Lowe's, the Home Depot. And those are certainly able to pay hazard pay. They're making more money than they've made in 6 months than they made in 4 or 5 years. And so certainly they'll pay you hazard pay. But will the businesses like the grocery stores that are down to capacity of where they were pre-pandemic going to pay hazard pay? There comes the next issue, which is this fall, protest. As pandemic numbers get worse, as the pandemic undergoes a second wave, as more and more states are into the red zone, as you see that map, you're going to see lockdowns. You're going to see lockdowns in Democratic-led states. And with those lockdowns, those frontline workers that work your grocery stores are going to be more valuable for you than ever before. And that's why protests are needed now, not then. You don't want people protesting as a frontline worker when the pandemic gets worse. You want them to protest now. And last night there was a protest. And that protest was here in Los Angeles. Warehouse workers organized a protest last night along, I'm not going to say the name of the street, even though it was in the news article, in front of the Beverly Hills home of Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos on Prime Day. They held a mock vigil Tuesday night. Protesters brought plastic candles which provided soft lighting, otherwise dark street, to highlight the plight of Amazon's frontline workers on Prime Day. They chanted, "Hey, Jeff Bezos, you can't hide. We see your greedy side." Amazon is catching the attention of the California Workers Protection Agency last week. OSHA, which governs safety in the workplace, cited Amazon for coronavirus safety violations at its Hawthorne Delivery Center, claims a news report. Those fines, which was $935, represent the smallest penalty imposed on employer. The organizer of the event, Warehouse Workers Resource Center, said that conditions need to be improved. It is obvious to frontline full-time workers that this organization uses it to raise visibility. Excuse me. This is Amazon's statement in regards to the protests. It was obvious to full-time workers that this organization used Prime Day to raise visibility, conjured misinformation, and a few associated voices to work in their favor and fuel media attention, said the company in a statement to Cal Matters. What's important to understand is not so much what Amazon's doing. What's important to understand is that protests are going to grow nationally, and they're generally going to hit the supermarkets first. I've been detailing that for a while. The supermarket unions need to really step up, and they need to do the protests now, because you don't want people protesting after the situation gets worse. You don't want whether you are a worker at a supermarket or a customer of a supermarket, you don't want to see these protests in November, December, when potentially we're on lockdown, and when potentially the weather is very, very bad, and when potentially you're desperately in need of groceries. Imagine you're in the middle of a pandemic in November, supermarket shelves are empty, because the protesters are outside and not willing to work as the pandemic starts to rage in a second wave. That is why you hope that people in Congress, people locally, and people nationally understand the importance of doing protests now. Let me turn to a great news story, and I'll certainly detail it in other recordings today as well. When we talk about that $150 billion from state and local, I talk about the need to go find it, and I talk about going on Google News, looking for news articles with your city or state plus grant plus CARES Act. Well, guess what? A senior citizen who watches this video out of Florida did what I told her to do, did what I say in this broadcast. You know, she's a senior citizen. She figured out a computer. She figured out how to go look for news articles. She found a grant program in South Florida for seniors for rent. So she applied, and she not only applied, but told all her girlfriends of the same age down the street and in her community. And guess what? They all applied, and they sent me a message saying, "Thank you, LALATE. We got our application in on the last day of the deadline because we watched your show." That was about a month ago. Yesterday, I got an email from her and said, "LALATE, we all got approved. We all got money because of you." That's the power of Purple Power. Me getting you money, me helping empower you to find the money, and you helping others to help them get the money. Understand the path of how this happened. I shared information. I informed you how to find money. I gave you the information to empower you to go where to find the money. She went and found the money based upon the information of these videos. She found the money, but she didn't just keep the money she found the application. She didn't just keep the application for herself. She shared the information with her girlfriends who also applied, and ultimately they all won. That's the power of Purple Power. Let me answer some of your 551 comments from yesterday. Mitch has to go. He's a waste of time. People focus too much on Pelosi, and Mitch is worse. Hence today's refocus. We're moving. We have a new mood, a new mood, and a new movement. Amanda, good evening. We need term limits. We do. Debbie, Mitch, he's a jerk. Well, tell me what you really think. Aaron, we need a new law that disallows politicians from using taxpayers' money as leverage against them. Patricia, 1.8 is a great deal. Why would Mitch mess with that? Gene, Mitch is pulling Nancy. Dirna, oh my hell, if it's not Nancy, it's Mitch. Michelle, these are comments 20 hours ago from when Mitch announced that new horrible bill that's coming next week, which we're not going to focus on. Michelle, Mitch and Nancy, both bipolar. Shantae, the wealth in need do not need relief. River of Life, if there's no stimulus for America, there should be no stimulus for corporations either. Well said. Deborah, it's just starting to look like communism. Charlene, they're all just lost their minds. Vote them all out. Mike, these clowns aren't doing anything time to get rid of these clowns. Albert Perucci, these two people are killing the American people. Sherry Zamanek, oh, stop it, Mitch. Chavione, it's a political game with us playing to play with them. It's a political games with us that they're playing with us to get people in and out. Todd W, it's like living the 1993 movie Groundhog Day. Victor De Silva, Trump is taking too long. Mike Schwittit. Mitch needs to go home and stay home. Tapruna. I guess they really don't understand what election season is. Daniela Esmeralda Bohem, vote them both out. Rhonda Bixler, nurses and doctors needs hazard pay. They're not getting anything. Amen. Shalia Rhymes of Delia. Cut off the comments. Sorry about this, Shalia. Well, I appreciate all your comments. They were incredibly great. Go to the front of the channel, subscribe. We're getting through this together. We're refocusing. We're staying positive. We're staying motivated. We're staying informed. We are really getting informed, so that's incredible. Also, like this video. Coming up next is McConnell versus Trump. Big development. Stay with me. Refocusing, and then Pelosi versus Mnuchin. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay LALATE for more.